Hey guys, it's Vocal Pineapple, and of course we're going to talk today about the most recent chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 361, where Shigaraki continues to take on the Big Three. Let's talk about that and the secret going on inside of his head after that intro. Hit it! Alright, so for chapter 361, from the very beginning of the chapter, we learn more about the Tenko personality within Shigaraki. He mentions his friends from his childhood in response to Mirio's comment about him not having friends from the last chapter, and gives a very childish response about actually having friends. This is one of those few times, if ever in the series, that we saw the original Tenko Shimura momentarily regaining control of his body, overtaking the personalities of All for One and Shigaraki, if only for a moment. Immediately after shouting this out, Shigaraki looks stunned, with his mouth open like he can't believe the words that just came out of his mouth. We see All for One placing his hand on his face, and I think that this is an interesting gesture for him to use as a tool to regain control over himself, because we know that Kotaro, Tenko's dad, putting his hand on Tenko's face either by slapping him or reaching for him in his final moments is one of the ways the father tried to control the son, and even in death, one of the hands that was originally on Tenko's face belonged to Kotaro, and that's one of the things that calms Tenko down, or at least gets him under control. All for One within Shigaraki remembers his inability to use decay at the start of the battle, and how his hand refused to act. This chapter sort of recontextualizes his failure to use decay as Tenko hesitating, because Mirio in this chapter also lets us know that he thought he felt Shigaraki hesitate when he attacked him, which gave Mirio just enough time to take a breath and phase through Shigaraki's attack. All for One Shigaraki looks within and realizes that Tenko is even there, an anomaly in their psyche who still hasn't been fused together with a perfect fusion of Shigaraki and All for One. He says the name Shimura, and this is a reminder that he doesn't actually see Tenko for who he is, he just sees Nana's grandchild and her lineage, because that's all that ever mattered to him when seeking Shigaraki or Tenko out in the first place. And of course, that was definitely one thing he made sure to get rid of when he took Tenko by removing his last name and giving him his own. Shigaraki heads towards Bakugo, and Nejire and Genus attempt to hold him off. Nejire gets a great focus in this chapter as she continues to present a decent challenge to Shigaraki, who has to continue to attend to her attacks and hold her off, while even his counterattacks don't really land much damage thanks to her incredible movement. Shigaraki tells the heroes that the UA skybase that they've constructed to beat him will actually be their own self-made tomb, as he continues to try and attack Nejire, and lands a glancing blow on her stomach. Nejire remembers back when she arrived at UA and felt as if everyone was looking at her as an unapproachable girl with a monster of a quirk. It was actually Tamaki that really brought her out of her shell, and she thanks him for being the reason that she opened up, made friends, and truly became much more powerful thanks to those bonds. Meanwhile, as Nejire sends multiple Nejire waves towards Shigaraki, one slips past him and goes far behind him, making its way to Tamaki, who's off in the distance camouflage, preparing his secret final technique. Nejire and Mirio both watch as Tamaki consumes Nejire's energy and say that Tamaki's quirk has no upper limit, because he just gets more and more powerful the more things that he eats. So that makes him the only logical choice when deciding who can actually hurt Shigaraki, since if Nejire's waves aren't damaging enough to land a hit, and Bakugo couldn't do enough damage on his own, then Tamaki's secret killer move where he unleashes parts of all the things that he's eaten and turns his arm into a massive cannon might do the trick. You can even see that Suneater has braced his legs for the blowback by growing more legs in a triangle pattern around the originals. It seems like Suneater is going to send a blast of enhanced Nejire energy at Shigaraki, and if they're smart, Nejire would have already practiced this with Tamaki, showing him how to form energy pikes of his own to truly maximize the potential damage to Shigaraki. With Suneater completely camouflaged, it's likely that this technique will hit Shigaraki, because if not, that would be pretty anticlimactic. So if that's the case, what do you think will happen to Shigaraki, and how do you think he'll continue to battle from there? Or do you think that there's a chance that the heroes here manage to momentarily knock Shigaraki out for the count? Because remember, all it'll take for him to get back up is some sort of distraction from Minoma or Aizawa. And I guess that's just a reminder that this fight is happening in stages, folks. So as far as my thoughts on the chapter in a more sort of review sense, I thought it was really interesting that we stayed on the Shigaraki, Bakugo, and Big Three conflict after the end of last chapter. We have been bouncing around between different fights and kind of at random intervals, and it seems like we are going to stick with this one a little bit longer to at least see what's going on with Tamaki, but I do think sooner or later, maybe even next chapter or the chapter after, we are going to be cutting away to another battlefield, potentially Kirishima's or maybe even Deku's, because there is still some stuff going on at other battlefields that we don't really know about. I think all of this is leading up to a bunch of different cliffhangers happening at all the different battlefields. For instance, we have Dabi with the weird light coming out of his chest. We have Togo with twice his blood getting ready to use Sad Man's Parade. We have All For One rewinding himself to his prime pretty much against Endeavor. We might have a situation with Shigaraki before we switch over, and we still don't know what's going on with Deku or what's going on in the Kirei-Mina area, because consider that Makia is in that area. So we know that it's possible for Makia to break free because he is a big indestructible warpath of a human being, but is it likely? This arc is shaping up to be one of My Hero Academia's best, at least as far as action and everything is concerned, or at least the potential for just mass chaotic events to continue happening at a rapid pace, right? It seems like Horikoshi is building to a very tense climax, and I think the heroes have been doing a very good job so far in this battle, but I do believe at a certain point we are going to see the tide change in the favor of the villains, if not only to raise the dramatic tension leading into the final moment where the heroes do eventually come back and take the win from the villains. How do you think it's going to happen, and how do you think we're going to approach the next chapter of My Hero Academia? Let me know in the comment section below, and thank you guys for supporting the channel since I've been back uploading. I've been uploading shorts and all sorts of fun stuff, and maybe later this week we'll do a video discussing my predictions for the next chapter, or at least a couple reasons why you should be excited for the next chapter if we do follow through on the content that's going on at the end of this chapter, right? Because we could very well cut away right here. This could be the cliffhanger in and of itself, not seeing what Tamaki is going to do to Shigaraki and not seeing how that's going to end up. I think that would be really mean by Horikoshi. I definitely do think we're going to see what ends up coming out of Tamaki's arm. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 361. If I was going to rate this chapter, I think I'd give it a solid 8. You know, it was pretty decent, maybe a 7.5. That's not bad at all, and I guess I could really raise it a little bit considering the chapter is only 11 pages, and that probably has to do with Horikoshi's help, so that kind of makes me want to put it at more like an 8.5 or something like that, or a 9. But realistically, with a chapter like this that's a little bit shorter than the regular at 11 pages, it's kind of hard to judge a lot, right? You kind of get a quick pace for the things that are going on. So those are my thoughts. I love you guys. It's Pineapple. Let me not do this all over again. Peace.